So on every website, you're going to need a contact form. So we created the ability to add a form to any page. So what we're going to do now is we are currently in the pages section. We're using this home page that we've already added content to. So we have these two content sections, and we're going to add a new content block, and we're going to use the form content section. So I'm just going to go ahead and title this form, and I selected the form section. It's going to allow us to create a form, and I'm going to click create block. So once we get in here, you'll see that we have it right here. We click edit, and we have these options. So let's go ahead under context and fill out our basic options. So let's contact us for the title. Let's put in a little bit of a description. We'll leave the background color as white, and we will not upload a background image. And for right now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click save. And we'll explore this pop-up button label in a second. I want to show you what it looks like just as default. So if we go back to the site that we've been working on, which has an image up at the top, these badges, we're going to click refresh. And you're going to see that we have contact us with the text and a basic form. So we have the form in there now, and now we have some form options. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our content management system, and we're going to go into the form settings. And right now, the form is a single column. What we're going to do is we're going to add some form fields, and we want this to be two columns side by side. So I'm going to create two columns, and this is the place that you have where you put in your contact form recipient. So that is, who does this go to? So I can have test@test.com, whatever your email is. I can have multiple emails, so test2@test2.com. Whatever your email addresses is, you can put them in there and comma separate them, and it'll send them to you. And then you have an option in here, show mailing list opt-in. So if you have an opt-in, you can go ahead and select this and click save. And I'll show you what that looks like real quick. And so when somebody's filling out this form, we don't have the mailing list option set up yet, so it's not going to show up. But if you have all of your mailing list stuff to MailChimp or whoever it is in the back end set up, it'll go ahead and show a little checkbox to make sure people can do that. So let's go back to making this a two-column form. So we have our two columns in there, and we're going to go ahead and go over to the form objects. And if we go ahead and click create form objects, we can go ahead and start creating our form fields. So we're going to start over. So we're going to do name, and we're going to choose text single line. So it's going to be one line. We're going to make it required. You can do things like your name as the placeholder in the field, and then you choose this drop down, and we're just going to keep it as plain text. So we're going to click save. Then we're going to create an email area, so a place for somebody's email. So we'll type in email. We'll choose the form. It'll be a single line. We'll make it required. Our placeholder could be like your email. And then you can go ahead and choose the email address and click save. Let's go ahead and ask for somebody's telephone number. Single line. We don't have to make this required. Let's say we don't put a placeholder in so that we can see what that looks like. And we'll do telephone number, and we'll click save. So you'll notice that when you're creating these, we'll do one more if just to show you. So we'll do web address. Choose a form, we'll do single line, and you'll notice we have things in here like website URL, numbers if you want to ask somebody about a certain kind of number, you can do that. So we'll just do this and click save. Now let's go ahead and create some options. So let's say we want to know, we want to use a drop-down selection. So we want to ask them if they're interested in different kinds of photography, let's say, and we want to use this drop-down. And we want to make this required because we want to know. So now we're going to create the drop-down. So we've titled it for ourselves so we know what the form field is. We're choosing the drop-down section. and we're going to start by adding the options. So we say option 1, and maybe we set this as the one that's already selected, and we click save. We click new again down here, and we say option 2, and we click save. So you'll see we have option 1 and option 2 here. Let's add a third option by clicking new, and we'll say option 3, and we click save. So we've created this drop-down selection. We've made it required. We have 3 options in here, and this one is checked off, which means that it's already going to be selected. So we're going to click save. Now let's create another type of field. So let's do a checkbox. If we want people to checkbox options, we want people to be able to check off different things that they want. Maybe options for their wedding that you can provide. And we may or may not make this required, but we're going to start by adding our options by clicking new. So this will be the first checkbox. So we'll say first. Maybe we won't set any of them because if they don't want it, we don't want it to come through as selected. So we'll click save. We'll do a second option. We'll click new again and do a third option. And we have our 3 options in here, and we'll click save. So we have name, email, telephone, www. We have drop-down selection, checkbox. Let's add another one. So let's go ahead and do radio buttons. So these will be little button options. And it's going to be very similar to the other 2. So we're going to go ahead and click new, and we'll say option 1, click save, new, option 2, click save, and new again, option 3, and click save. So we have all of our options in here. Let's create another type of selection, a date. When do you want your photo shoot to happen, let's say? So choose a date. And we have the date selection selected. We want to make this required, and you can either just not set a date, or you could set a default date for them to start with. So you can pick a date or not, and then click save. And you have to choose the date. And now we might want to create like a subject, and we'll make this a single line, and we'll click save. And now let's give them an area for a message, and we'll use a multi-line. A multi-line meaning it's not single line. They're going to type a paragraph or more, and tell me something good as my placeholder. So let's see what this looks like. So let's go and refresh right now. This is what our form looks like. We change it from a single column to a double column, which is why you see this extra space here, because we didn't add any fields yet. But now that we added fields, we're going to refresh it, and you're going to see all these options in here now. So when you're coming through here, the drop down looks like this: 1, 2, and 3 options. Number 1 is already selected. We have the checkbox. If we were to select number 2, then it changes to 2. We have the checkbox options. I can choose just those. I can uncheck them. And then we have bullet points. So I can choose only one of these. That's different than check boxes. And I can choose a date in here. Pick that date, adds it to it. I can type a subject. And then you'll see we have the titles up here, right? And then we have our text that is the example text, the placeholder text that's in there. So like on the name, we have the name, and then we have your name, and email, your email. And then I didn't do it for telephone and www. But then I can type a message in here, and then we can go ahead and hit submit. And so that is the basic contact form when you're building it out. So now let's look at some of the other options that we have. So let's go back to form settings, and let's say we wanted to make this so that it's a pop-up. Maybe we don't want it to be all inline, meaning right on the page like this. So we could the best place to use this is if you're going to have fewer options, just like name and email, and maybe message or just name an email and you want to put it at the bottom of the site in one of the last sections. Or if you're going to create a whole contact page and you're going to add the form section to it, then you can build this out, and I think that looks good. But let's say you just want it at the bottom of your page and you want a little button for them to contact us and have it pop up. So we're going to go back, and I'm sorry, we're going to go to the context section. So we have title, text, the color, and now we're going to do pop-up button label. So we're going to go from pop-up button label, it's going to say, we'll do something like contact me, and we'll click save. That's going to be the title of the button. And then we're going to go to the form settings, and instead of 2-column or single column, we're going to go pop-up. And then we're going to click save. And when we come in here and refresh, you're going to see that it all gets broken down to the title, the text, and the contact me button. And when I click this, it pops up that form, and I can go through and submit. And that is the different kinds of forms. So you have the basic single line that as soon as you initiate this content section, it's going to automatically give you name, I think email and subject. But if you want to add on to those fields, then you rebuild it in the form object area and you add all your forms in here, all your form fields, and then you can go ahead and also make it a pop-up.